Thank you for being such a wonderful man. I promise we will keep your family safe, your wife and your 3 daughters. You will be always in our heart, and we will cherish every minute that we've been together with you. And I'm very sorry that you are still out there. We will do everything to bring you back home. And Eli, my friend, my brother, as the UK said, everyone is doing the best they can to bring you home, and this is the time to act and not to talk. The time is running out, as everyone said. This is not a slogan. You saw what happened to Yossi. We don't want all the hostages to come back in coffins, or maybe not to come back at all. We have to act now. Yossi and Eli and everyone, we are thinking about you. We are doing everything to bring you back home. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone does have any questions, please can you identify yourself and ask the question.
John Ray from ITV News. Question really for Stephen and Sharon, who both addressed this. There is obviously a ceasefire deal on the table at the moment. Are you urging the Israeli government to take it, to do the difficult things for them, which is not just a ceasefire, it's the extensive release of Palestinian prisoners, perhaps also the withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza? Are you urging the Israeli government to take the ceasefire deal, which is on the table right now?
Do you want to start? I think I've said before, I'm not a politician. I'm not a diplomat. My story is a family one. It's about people. It's about family. It's not about sort of land and borders and politics. That said, I think all the major stakeholders from Israel to Qatar, Egypt, and the UK have made it abundantly clear that the first priority is to bring the hostages home. I don't think it's for me to say what any deal should be. It shouldn't be necessary for there to be a deal at all. It's quite clear that the holding of these hostages is against all international law. These are civilian hostages. These are hostages who, ironically, were members of kibbutzim who had great sympathy for and affinity with the people of Gaza and Palestine, and actually did a lot to help them, to employ them, to provide assistance to them. All I can say is families want their family members back. So whatever needs to be done by whatever side, that needs to be done. I'm not going to get into what the current deal says, but it's abundantly clear that the hostages have to be brought home. And whatever will achieve that as quickly as possible has to be done. Because, as we keep on saying, the price of failure has been writ large in Yossi's death. Every single passing hour and day is a passing hour and day that a lot of the hostages simply do not have. So all I can say is whatever needs to be done to bring the hostages home safely and alive must be done.
A very moving press conference there from 4 of the families of those hostages that are still in captivity following those October the 7th attacks by Gaza on Israel, of course, timing this press conference to urge Israel to strike a deal with Hamas for a ceasefire that would involve hostage exchanges. Timing it with Secretary Blinken's meetings in Israel with Prime Minister Netanyahu that follows his whirlwind trip around the Middle East, most notably in taking in Saudi Arabia and Egypt, as well as other countries, trying to get to that point of another deal that would see a significant, if not all, remaining hostages exchanged for prisoners that Israel keeps Hamas operatives and many other factors, of course, to that deal, which we will no doubt learn more about if it is reached. And we'll be going live to the region for a report on that and Blinken's trip of late later in the show. But let's move back to our top story. Prince William will return to royal duties for the first time today following his father's cancer diagnosis. The Prince of Wales will perform an investiture ceremony at Windsor Castle after stepping back from official duties to care for his family after his wife's own hospital treatment last month. Well, the King and Queen travelled to Sandringham in Norfolk yesterday after the King started treatment in London earlier this week. It's been a particularly difficult time for the royal family over the past few weeks. Let's just remind you of some of the health-related issues that have been going on. Well, on the 16th of January, the Princess of Wales went into hospital to undergo abdominal surgery. On the same day, her husband, the Prince of Wales, stepped back from his official duties to care for her and their young children. Just 10 days later, the King was admitted to the same hospital to undergo planned treatment for an enlarged prostate. He and his daughter-in-law, the Princess of Wales, were both released from hospital on the 29th of January. Well, the following week, Buckingham Palace announced that the King had been diagnosed with cancer, which was discovered during his treatment in London. Prince Harry arrived yesterday from Los Angeles and is understood to have spent around 45 minutes with his father at Clarence House. And now today, as we heard, Prince William, the next in line to the throne, returns to his official duties. I'm joined now from Sandringham by our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock. Laura, first and foremost, what do we know about the King's condition? He's remaining upbeat.
The King is said to be staying positive and looking forward to getting back to royal duties. But the reality, of course, is we don't know when that will be. He has now started a course of treatment following his cancer diagnosis. That happened on Monday. He's then come back to Sandringham here, his rural Norfolk private estate, no doubt for some relaxation and recuperation before returning to London for the next course of his treatment. We're not being given the details, as we know, of the nature of his cancer, indeed the nature of his treatment, and have been told not to expect any kind of running commentary. But there is a feeling that this will be a familiar pattern now. The King going back to London, potentially doing some state business, but going back primarily for his treatment and then returning to one of his country residences. The news really is that this meeting took place between the King and Prince Harry. It was interesting when the palace issued that statement. There was a very quick response from California saying that Prince Harry had spoken to the King, that he would be returning to the UK. That all happened very quickly. Yesterday, Harry making his way straight from the airport to Clarence House, where the two of them met for just over half an hour. Don't read too much into that length of time. We're told the King was tired after his treatment, but it is significant, I think, and perhaps almost positive that Harry chose to make that long journey just to have the meeting with the King, because as we all know, the two of them have not seen eye to eye. They have not spoken in person for months. They didn't really see each other at the coronation either. So this being seen by many as a positive reunion, perhaps not a reconciliation at this point. Definitely the same can't be said for Prince William. We're hearing that there are no plans for the two brothers to meet at this point. But we will be seeing Prince William. He has, of course, been off work for over 3 weeks following the Princess of Wales surgery. And while she was settling back at home following that surgery, he will be performing duties today, this morning, and then later this evening as well. And of course, the King, we're told, he won't be doing any public-facing duties, but those red boxes will be brought here to Sandringham. Wherever he is, he can attend to those sorts of affairs, all that state paperwork and the like. But we will expect, I think, to see the other royals stepping up a bit. So Prince William, we will see. We know the Princess Royal has been busy yesterday, will be again today. And the Queen as well, Camilla, here at Sandringham at the moment, but she will be continuing with her diary of engagements as this new reality sort of sets in and starts to settle into.
Laura, great stuff. Thanks so much, Laura Bundock there outside Sandringham. Now, for Sky News investigation exposing the culture of sexual harassment faced by paramedics in the ambulance service. We've spoken to workers who describe the details of the toxic behaviour they encounter on an often daily basis, which in some cases turns into serious assault. A warning, this report from our correspondent Rachel Venables includes description of self-harm, suicide and sexual attacks that you may find distressing.
It's exhausting coming to work, dealing with inappropriate behaviour and sexual comments. I
think they thought that because they were in a green uniform, they could get away with it, that they were untouchable.
They joined the ambulance service because they wanted to help people, but found a culture plagued by misogyny and sexual harassment. Freya says she put up with it for years, until one day a colleague locked her in the back of an ambulance and sexually assaulted her.
He just put his hand straight down my top. I was like, in shock. I couldn't move. I didn't know how to react. I just froze, absolutely froze. And if that wasn't enough, he then took my breast out and put my breast in his mouth. He took his pen, like a felt tip pen, and he drew a smiley face above and below my nipple. I just remember going into the station immediately when we got back, and I washed and scrubbed myself and got rid of the ink. And he took a photo of it as well.
The trauma led Freya to try to amputate her breast and attempt to take her own life. She's received compensation from the trust and no longer works as a paramedic.
I have scars, mentally and physically, and I had the career I so loved stolen from me. And I'm lonely. I'm on my own because I can't trust anyone.
So this was the paramedic epaulets that I had when I first was a paramedic, which I was really proud of. And this is my epaulets from when I was the operations manager.
Carol King was in charge of 130 members of staff in the southwest of England, but she left after raising complaints about harassment and bullying that she says went unresolved.
You're always afraid of saying anything to anybody who is more senior because you always think you're going to get reprisals, possibly that you won't get another job, you won't be able to move up the career ladder. That's the biggest thing. I don't think that's how I always felt years ago, but I still think that happens now.
If a young woman came to you today and said, I'd like to be a paramedic, I'd like to join the ambulance service, what would you say to her?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Why?
Well, if I had a daughter, I wouldn't let them. I just think there's too many predators in there waiting for some young girl to go in there.
South Western Ambulance Service says it doesn't tolerate behaviour that goes against its values and encourages victims to speak up. And in recent years, women have been sharing their stories. The College of Paramedics launched an investigation and support programme after hearing from students about the sexual harassment they suffered while on placements.
We have found that our female student council members are experiencing misogyny and sexual harassment, if not on a daily, on a weekly basis, by a minority of people who just feel that behaviour is acceptable.
Tracy Nichols is particularly concerned about students feeling pressured into relationships or even sexual acts in order to progress.
Sometimes it's perceived as banter, but immediately there's a power imbalance there for that student. And sometimes that progresses to a really difficult space where I won't sign you off until maybe you come out for a date with me, or I won't sign you off until you send me a picture of yourself.
Laura is a newly qualified paramedic and says it's common for older male mentors to begin relationships with much younger students.
Very often the stories I've heard of mentors who have wives and kids at home are almost preying on these students who don't think they know any better. And the student goes into it and sort of thinks, this is a person who's got respect. They look up to these paramedics. And the mentor will play on that and will take advantage of the power that they have.
She says female paramedics are forced to put up with sexualising comments disguised as banter.
It's awful. I actually look forward to the winter months where it's colder, where I can wear my jacket more often so that I'm more covered up. We've got the same uniform, we've got a standardised unisex uniform, and I shouldn't have to feel like I'm being objectified and looked up and down by my colleagues, but that is the case.
An NHS spokesperson said any form of sexual misconduct is completely unacceptable and that every ambulance trust in England has committed to a plan which commits to improving sexual safety. A number of culture reports in recent years have highlighted the open secret of sexual harassment, blaming the male-dominated nature of such a hierarchical work structure. But victims want that secret to now be fully understood and finally dealt with. Rachel Venables, Sky News.
Well, we'll be speaking to Alison Spencer-Scragg from the Unite Union, who represents a lot of these workers, later in the show in about 15 minutes' time. So do stay tuned for that. And by the way, if you or anyone has been affected by the issues in the story, feel free to call the Samaritans, 116123, or email joe@samaritans.org. Now, at least 24 people have been killed in 2 explosions in Pakistan, one day ahead of the country's parliamentary elections. The first attack, which killed 14, took place at the office of an independent election candidate in Pishin district in the Balochistan region, while a second explosion took place in the Qilla Saifullah, a town near the Afghan border, by the office Jaimat Ulema-Islam. The religious party had previously been the target of militant attacks, according to the province's information minister. Well, no one immediately claimed responsibility for the attacks. Meanwhile, the United Nations top human rights body has expressed concern about authorities banning the former Prime Minister Imran Khan from running and an alleged pattern of harassment against members of his party. The former cricketer was jailed recently for corruption, leaking state secrets, and an illegal marriage, charges he says are politically motivated. Well, our Asia correspondent, Cordelia Lynch, has been to Karachi to meet one of the candidates, hoping he'll be selected to lead the country instead.
Bilawal Bhutto Zardari knows all about the path to power in Pakistan and the sacrifice. His mother, former Prime Minister Benazir, was assassinated. He's vowing to end the politics of hate, but some say vengeance cuts right through this election, with Imran Khan, the most popular politician, forced out of the race, sentenced to 34 years in jail. And many believe it's the powerful military that's pulling the strings.
Pakistani politics is looking in a pretty shocking state right now. You've had protests, terror threats, you've got a front runner in jail. Do you think it's at breaking point?
I think that to an outsider it may look shocking, but unfortunately this is nothing new for Pakistani politics. What I'm campaigning on is to try and bring a change to what I think has led to a lot of the younger generation of Pakistanis, 65% of our population under the age of 30, and they're very disenchanted.
You've got Imran Khan, who the polls say is the most popular politician in Pakistan, behind bars, lots of PTI candidates also jailed. Can you have any faith that these are going to be free and fair elections?
As far as polls are concerned, the only polls that matter are election day. As far as being behind bars is concerned, unfortunately, when Mr. Khan was in power, he rather relished having his political opposition of all stripes in prison. Quite actively would campaign on how he was going to send everyone in prison. Not just his political opponents, but his political opponents' daughters, his political opponents' sisters were arrested.
The pendulum swings fast here. Now another former leader, who's also spent time inside, is the favourite. Nawaz Sharif, back from exile and believed to be back in the good graces of the military.
They reportedly want Sharif at the top. Do you recognise that?
As far as the current situation is concerned, I'm sure Mr. Sharif himself and his party are trying to give this impression that they're the favoured son and it is inevitable they're to become Prime Minister, and they're hoping that that's a strong enough campaign to get them elected. The Pakistan People's Party has consistently campaigned now for 3 generations to have what we call the establishment, the military, the judiciary, the bureaucracy, to function within their constitutional domain.
Bilawal Bhutto wants to be a change maker. He's more likely to be a kingmaker, a possible coalition partner, and achieving stability in a country where so many people feel alienated and angry. Well, that isn't going to be easy for anyone.
Some fear the roots of this political system are rotten, the vote rigged. The caretaker government denies that, but the in-tray is certainly big. An economic crisis, volatile borders, and a rising terror threat. That, combined with any government that might lack popular support, could be a recipe for significant unrest.
Well, our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch does join us now from Islamabad. I mean, Cordelia, these elections are so important and so controversial based on all sorts of factors leading up to it, with quite a lot of unrest, significant unrest bubbling over at the moment?
Yes, certainly security concerns that have only been increasing in recent weeks. And today, on the eve of the vote, when people go to the polls, we've seen 2 blasts that have killed at least 22 people. I think that is only going to add to the collective anxiety. These took place, these blasts, in Balochistan. That is an area on the border with Afghanistan where there have been a number of attacks in recent weeks. The first blast took place in the city of Quetta, in the Pishin district. It's about 100 kilometres from the Afghan border. The second blast took place near the office of a candidate for the Islamist party, the JUIF. The first blast was outside the office of an independent candidate. We have seen at least 2 candidates killed so far ahead of this critical vote tomorrow. And it happens, as you say, amidst a backdrop of a lot of unrest. There has been concern and talk of what certainly Imran Khan's party alleges vote rigging, that the election and the result is already predetermined. They say that some of their candidates that have been forced to stand as independent candidates have been intimidated. And so I think there's a lot of jeopardy, a lot of uncertainty, and it's also a very large nation. We're looking at a population of 240 million people, around 18,000 candidates that are standing, and so simply processing these votes is going to be very challenging.
Well, Delia, thanks so much for that. A critical election tomorrow. I have all of the latest, both during the day and the results afterwards, with Cordelia from tomorrow. Now, of course, closer to home, big election here this year. And to help you prepare for that, we have a little bit of an announcement here from Sky News. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, is in Westminster with that announcement, sitting alongside former Scottish Conservatives leader Baroness Davidson. And Beth, tell us what this little announcement is to help us build up to the election.
Well, yes, Wilf, it's a gigantic election year, not just in the UK, but around the world. And so we thought it would be a good idea to have an election podcast. Now, there's lots of political podcasts around, but there isn't one with an all-woman lineup. So I've pulled together 2 powerhouses of British politics. This lady beside me, Ruth Davidson, and Jess Phillips from the Labour Party. And each week we're going to be getting together to talk about who's on top, who's having an electoral dysfunction. That's the name of the podcast. Then we'll talk about the issues of the week and what's happening beyond Westminster as well. So it's going to be a fun chat, I hope.
Yeah, I mean,
if I can get a word in edgeways.
Yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for Beth Wolf because we've done a couple of pilots and Jess and I are completely unmanageable. So you're going to have to, like, if ever there was the need of the smack of firm government, Beth, you're going to have to provide it, because we just talk and talk and talk. And I think the worry for our respective parties is that I don't think either of us have ever just held a party line in our lives. So yeah, it'll be honest, if nothing else.
It will be honest.
I have to say, I back Beth to deliver on what does sound like a difficult task, but I almost want to hear some of the pilots now, if that you're alluding to. But when's the first actual episode going to drop?
So we're going to launch it on March the 1st. And it will have different sections in it. So we'll have a section about, as I said, who's on top in the political week, who's having an electoral dysfunction. We'll talk about which stories we want to bring for that week, depending on what Ruth, Jess and I pick. Then we're going to have a bit of a show and tell section, aren't we, whereby...
Well, I think part of it, because Beth's from Birmingham and I'm from Scotland as well, I think there's a whole world outside of London that people don't always talk about. I mean, when you have wall-to-wall ULEZ coverage in some by-election that happens, and you just think 60 million people in this country are not affected by that and don't care, frankly, we'll hopefully give a bit of perspective and also perhaps offer some sort of advice to our opponents as well as our own side, because as part of the name suggests, Lots of people don't think politics is working very well at the moment. So how can we make it better? And Jess is an absolute superstar. I've always kind of wished that I could be her when I grow up, even though she's younger than me. But I think the issue is we're not cynical about politics. Like, we want politics to be better, and I think a lot of people out there are the same. They want it to work better. But because we've been in the room, because she's been in the shadow cabinet, because I've sat, around cabinet tables with prime ministers and had discussions before and led a party, we know what's going on. So we can kind of explain how this mess up has happened, or what could be done better. So hopefully, as well as being honest, we can try and suggest how to do things better.
Yeah, exactly. And we will be, as if you like, talking about how the sausage gets made. Like, how does politics work? Why isn't it working for the public? And something that struck me, Wilf, was at the beginning of the year when Keir Starmer did his big opening speech, what he talked about was apathy, and actually the biggest danger in an election year and to democracy more broadly is people switching off. So we hope that they will tune in. It won't just be all hardcore politics, though. We are going to have a Netflix and chill section right at the end where we'll talk about things like Traitors, if you like watching that, or what we've been reading, which I predict will become about 90% of the podcast within a few weeks.
Well, I'm glad you explained what our Netflix and chill section was going to be, Beth, because we could have left the audience with a completely wrong idea about us there.
Forced everyone to listen for
I don't think so. I don't think anybody wants to think about politicians like that.
I was a little nervous there as well. But listen, I can't wait. So it's the start of March. I'm looking forward to tuning in. Give us a very quick preview, Ruth, of something you might have said. What's top of the agenda to look out for on PMQs today?
Well, look, I mean, I think that good old-fashioned tabloid sting that Piers Morgan executed on the Prime Minister, I mean, somebody that had maybe done more media than Rishi Sunak had done before he became Chancellor unexpectedly and then became Prime Minister, he would have seen that coming a mile off. I mean, it was crass. It was inexplicable that he kind of fell for it, if you like. But the optics of it are so bad that I would be astonished if Labour doesn't go in hard on just what that means to have £1,000 bet, like what £1,000 means to people, but also about the outcome of desperate people's lives.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure that will pop up, and I know that Beth and Jane will have all of that covered from midday for PMQs, and I will be subscribing from today, I guess. So I'm ready for the first episode. 1st of March. We look forward to it. Guys, thanks so much. Now we're going to switch focus. We've got some breaking news. Disgraced paedophile pop star Gary Glitter has lost a parole board bid to be freed from jail. You might remember we've been talking about this over the last couple of weeks and months. His attempts to be released, and he has lost that attempt. Now, the US Defense Secretary Antony Blinken has arrived in Israel just hours after Hamas responded to a proposed deal to pause the fighting in Gaza. This is the 5th trip he's made to the region since the October the 7th attack. And he says he's still optimistic an agreement can be reached. According to a document seen by Reuters, Hamas's counter-proposal lays out a 3-phase pause in the violence. Let's now speak to our correspondent, Diana Magnay, who's in Jerusalem for us. Diana, is there a bit of carrot, a bit of stick in what Antony Blinken's going to be trying to deliver to Prime Minister Netanyahu to cajole him, to push him towards potentially making this deal?
Well, I think he'll be adding to the political pressure that Benjamin Netanyahu is already under domestically here in Israel. From one side, he has the families of the hostages who desperately want their family members home. From the other side, he has the far-right ministers in his coalition who are threatening to pull out of the coalition if he agrees to any kind of a truce which doesn't see the complete annihilation of Hamas and a withdrawal of IDF forces from Gaza is unpalatable to them. So he's in a very difficult situation politically, and bear in mind that the one thing Benjamin Netanyahu wants to do is stay in power, because if he doesn't, he faces corruption allegations and charges. Antony Blinken will just be adding to that pressure. But I think that, we've just heard that press conference from families of hostages in the UK saying time really is running out. If we don't get them out now, we may not get them out at all. There are just over 130 hostages left in Gaza. We know from the IDF yesterday that 31 hostages are confirmed to have been killed whilst in captivity. And now we have Hamas's counter-proposal, which, as you say, is talking about a three-phase deal or ceasefire, which would initially see women and children hostages released. Then you would see the remaining male hostages sent home, and in exchange 1,500, according to this draft document seen by Reuters, Palestinian prisoners released from Israeli jails, initially women and children, and then the men. And I think that is a major sticking point here in Israel, who exactly those Palestinian prisoners would be. Hamas wants to see a third of those who've been given life sentences by Israel returned home. Those are men who have carried out terrorist attacks in Israel's eyes here in Gaza and here in Israel, who have been given life sentences, extended life sentences, and who are deemed terrorists here. And of course, that is very sensitive to have them released and returned home when the main point of this whole conflict has been not just to release the hostages, but also to disable Hamas once and for all. So it is an incredibly difficult deal to negotiate. Anthony Blinken is pulling every lever that he can. He's coming to the end of his fifth tour to the region since this conflict began. He's been in Qatar and Saudi Arabia talking to mediators about this deal. Now he will be speaking to Benjamin Netanyahu this morning, to the president of Israel, to the head of the IDF. This afternoon he will be talking to Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah, the head of the Palestinian Authority. And obviously the US's view is not just to orchestrate this initial ceasefire, but also further down the line to put steps in place for a day after in Gaza, what happens when this has all come to an end, and to start footsteps towards a two-state solution, which is another thing that Netanyahu says that he won't possibly countenance. And I think that many here in Israel say is simply not conceivable at this stage. So there are a huge number of hurdles still to overcome, with 131 hostages still in Gaza waiting to come home. It is a very, very difficult conundrum, but one I think that Anthony Blinken, that the US President Joe Biden feels there is a glimmer of hope. And we shall have to see, because fundamentally, Wilf, it is down now to Benjamin Netanyahu to a certain extent, and he does listen to the Americans, but he also tends to tread his own path. So I think the next step is down to him.
Diana, thanks so much. Diana Magnay for us there in Jerusalem. We want to bring you now an update on our Sky News investigation, which revealed a culture of misogyny and sexual harassment across ambulance trusts in the UK. Well, in the last hour or so, the Shadow Health Secretary Wes... Sorry, just in the last hour or so, the Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting has commented on this. Let's have a listen.
I'm horrified by reports we've seen about the extent of sexual harassment and abuse among patients in NHS hospitals. I'm even more shocked that paramedics at work are reporting that they are being sexually harassed and assaulted in the back of ambulances. In the NHS, I want to be really clear about this. Any sexual abuse, harassment, assaults that take place within the NHS need to be reported to police and properly investigated. Anyone responsible, we need to come down like a ton of bricks on within the criminal justice system. And anyone who attacks or assaults NHS patients or NHS staff will not be welcome in the NHS with a Labour government.
Just moments ago, let's bring in Rachel Venables for her take on this response from the Shadow Health Secretary and the context with your story this morning.
Of course, good morning. Yes, well, I think really strong comments there by Wes Streeting, of course, the Labour Shadow Health Minister, responding, as many people have been doing, to this investigation this morning that we have brought, which really exposes, I think, for the first time fully, the extent of sexual harassment and misogyny that we understand has been operating in ambulances, in the crew rooms of ambulance stations for many, many years. I've been speaking to female paramedics, past and present, about what they have to endure, whether it is sexist sexist comments, objectifying comments about the way they look, about their sex lives, or even to sexual harassment, particularly of students and trainees, all the way up to serious allegations of sexual assault. And the report we've been running this morning has quite a graphic and really horrendous example of one such sexual assault, which the woman, the paramedic who suffered that, it ended up almost destroying her life. She tried to take her own life, in fact, and is no longer a paramedic. And so you can see not only is this affecting the women day to day in their jobs, but of course it leads some to have to leave the service and to leave a job that they love. Everyone I've spoken to has talked about this being a career that they always wanted, that they enjoyed, that the vast majority of people that they work with, in fact, are brilliant, but that there is a rot at the heart of the organisation, really, of ambulance services right across the country. And we've also heard, really quite staggeringly, I think, this morning from the Chief Executive of the College of Paramedics, who's talked about student paramedics in particular coming forward to the college, the professional body that represents paramedics, in recent years to complain about the level of harassment that they receive while they are at work, while they are on placements, learning to be paramedics. And she described, Tracy Nichols, women coming to her and saying that they've been told, go for a drink with me and then maybe I'll pass you, or I won't pass your placement unless perhaps you send me a photo. This is the reality that we are seeing, and I think this may be only the beginning. I should stress, of course, that the NHS has said that this behaviour will not be tolerated. They say any form of sexual misconduct is completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated within the NHS. And they also say NHS England taking action to ensure the safety of patients, staff and students. They say by rolling out a plan which has particularly been picked up, they say, in England to try and improve sexual safety. I have to say, in recent years there have been a number of reports, cultural reviews, national and local, into specific ambulance services which have highlighted this sort of behaviour. Victims hope that now this is more and more coming into the open, it can finally be tackled.
Rachel, thanks so much for that. And let's keep this discussion going and bring in now Alison Spencer-Scragg, who is National Women's Officer at Unite, the union which represents over 5,000 ambulance trusts, and joins us now. Alison, thanks for joining us. I mean, what is your take on Rachel's report from this morning?
Good morning, Will. Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and for Sky for covering this story today. It was a harrowing report from Rachel. The toxic culture that's happening, reports of sexual assault, crimes being committed against workers, going just, carrying out the daily role. And we do see this as a collective issue. Workers need to belong to trade unions, and we're not going to wait for this to be reported to us. We're going to act immediately, and we're going to survey our women members in the ambulance trusts, because this cannot be tolerated. The report indicates that, as I say, crimes have been committed, not just the sexist banter is allowed to take place, and I commend these women for going on record, and anybody who reports sexual harassment, and we will be there to support them as a union.
Were you surprised by it, by the extent of it?
In terms of some of the allegations of behaviours happening when there was other members of staff present and not being challenged, that is extremely concerning, because does that indicate a wider culture that's been tolerated? I did read that the trusts had sexual plans to ensure sexual safety, and obviously they need strongly reviewing, because it seems like nothing's been happening to identify and stamp out this behaviour. The report in terms of actual assaults happening as well on staff in the back of ambulances, it was truly shocking, and my solidarity goes to Freya and all the other colleagues and ex-colleagues and people who've felt pushed out of the profession due to this behaviour being allowed to take place. It's unacceptable, and we will present the trusts with our survey results, and we need to see an end to this culture within any workplaces.
What needs to be done next, and who is responsible for tidying this up? That's the wrong phrase, for sorting this out. And is it something that needs government action? Is it individual paramedic trusts, as you're alluding to? Are you surprised, as the union that represents these workers, that this isn't something that has reached your level sooner, such that action could have been taken sooner?
I mean, when there are reports, we always act, and we represent anybody that comes to us with any concerns. I think what this report is highlighting is a more widespread culture that's been allowed to take place. So I think there's a mixture of different responses. Obviously, there's our response as a union, and as I say, we do want to take that immediate action and proactively go out and ask women members their experience in the workplace. There's also the action that the trust needs to take. Those action plans need immediate reviewing. And also government. I mean, we've got the Workers' Protection Bill, which comes in October, which has already been watered down. It's supposed to prevent sexual harassment happening in the first place. And the original word was all reasonable steps, and the word all was taken out. And I think that it's not good enough to just say that if a company or a workplace doesn't prevent sexual harassment, then there's an uplift in a tribunal award. We need this to be a collective response and prevent it happening in the first place. And in terms of the third-party harassment that we used to have as part of the Equality Act and that was dropped, imagine if some of these workers were actually working for an agency or it was members of the public. Obviously, there would be no legal recourse there. So that's something that we've been campaigning for, to have third-party harassment reinstated.
Alison, thanks so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
They must be compensated. That's the message to the government this morning, calling on ministers to set up a financial package to help patients whose lives have been impacted by the epilepsy drug valproate and pelvic mesh. Previously, the calls have been rejected, but today a major report says that the position is unsustainable and is causing immense anxiety for harmed patients. Our home editor, Jason Farrell, has spoken to some of the people who've been affected.
There's no way to put a value on what Natasha has lost due to a medical procedure on the NHS that has left her in agony.
Because it's a very sharp
Wave.
pain. It feels
SendWave
almost
is a money
like
transfer app
I've
that
got
is
a
used by
piece of
people
wood
all over the
wedged
world
in
to
there.
send money to their loved ones in Africa.
No,
With
like
SendWave,
like
you can send money to
proper,
Ghana,
like if you had a
Nigeria,
pencil
Kenya, Uganda, and
wedged in
Tanzania.
there.
And the best part is,
Pelvic mesh
SendWave is
implants
absolutely
will be given to
commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR, S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Hey, Charlie, you're on your way to Ghana. Boy, oh boy, you stressed out, tired. God, you're going to be resting. Okay, then let me recommend to you JN Mobile Spa in Accra, Ghana. Oh boy, JN Mobile Spa, they provide organic care in massage. Are you stressed? Do you need rejuvenated, etc.? For your facials, maybe exfoliating, firming, and lifting? Then contact JN Spa on 00233 244 941 002 or 00233 2006 06386, and they will be right there on time. JN Mobile Spa, your health and beauty needs at your doorstep. Are you looking for the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy door-to-door shipment company? Well, look no further. When was the last time your family received a shipment back in Ghana on time and in time? You are not sure? Well, Lamb Shippers, we pride ourselves with being the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy shippers you can use. You are assured of a prompt pickup anywhere in the UK by our personnel. They also make sure your items are well packaged to get to its destination in time. When it comes to door-to-door shipment, look no further. Well, Lamb Shippers, contact us on 07939009321 or 07498911820. Or you can visit our website www.welllamb.co.uk. You can also drop us a mail, info@welllamb@gmail.com. Well Lamb Shippers, fast, reliable, and trustworthy.
Hi there. Are you dreaming of owning your own house in Ghana? Then you will need a well-documented piece of land that is free from troubles. I highly recommend My Africa Property for any size of land that you will need. With My Africa Property, lands are available in Pram, Sopoli, Tohenia, Ogome, Dodova, Winneba, and many other locations at affordable prices. These locations are about an hour away from the airport, only 35 minutes from the motorway, 10 minutes drive from Central University College, 10 minutes drive to the beach, and close to Pram Senior High School and Ghana Men's Soccer Center of Excellence. For more details, visit our website www.myafricaproperty.com or call our UK office on 0208 123 2523. For our US and Canada offices, call us on +1 585 184 994145. You can also email us at ghana@myafricaproperty.com.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
Tune in to On Point here on Starr Radio UK with Empress Regina every Monday at 5 p.m. GMT. Looking forward to your company.
Hi guys, this is your friend Uruj from SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business. The show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Hey, Charlie, you're on your way to Ghana. Boy, oh boy, you stressed out, tired. God, you're going to be resting. Okay, then let me recommend to you JN Mobile Spa in Accra, Ghana. Oh boy, JN Mobile Spa, they provide organic care in massage. Are you stressed? Do you need rejuvenated, etc.? For your facials, maybe exfoliating, firming, and lifting? Then contact JN Spa on 00233 244 941 002 or 00233 2006 06386, and they will be right there on time. JN Mobile Spa, your health and beauty needs at your doorstep. Are you looking for the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy door-to-door shipment company? Well, look no further. When was the last time your family received a shipment back in Ghana on time and in time? You are not sure? Well, Lamb Shippers, we pride ourselves with being the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy shippers you can use. You are assured of a prompt pickup anywhere in the UK by our personnel. They also make sure your items are well packaged to get to its destination in time. When it comes to door-to-door shipment, look no further. Well, Lamb Shippers, contact us on 07939009321 or 07498911820. Or you can visit our website www.welllamp.co.uk. You can also drop us a mail, info@welllamp@gmail.com. Well Lamp Shippers, fast, reliable, and trustworthy.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
All around the world. In your car,
At work,
at home,
on your smartphone.
This is Starr Radio UK. Are you ready to turn it up?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Hey, this is Archie, and you are listening to Starr Radio UK and the Morning Show.
This is Starr Radio. This is UK. Starr Radio UK. This is Starr Radio UK.
Welcome.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
Enlighten your day with Starr Radio. Starr Radio. Radio for the people, by the people.
Welcome and good morning to Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Today is the 7th day of the second month, that's February, the year 2024, with the time now 10:53 exactly from the hearts of London. And let me say good morning to my colleague and co-presenter, Mr. Olaimi Koiki, to my able producer, Mr. Francis Guy, to Mr. Frank Davis, to all presenters on Starr Radio UK. Olakunle, massive good morning to you. Bishop Adeshina, good morning. Shamsuddin, good morning. Then to all you wonderful people. Rachel, hey, it's been quite a while. I hope you are doing very, very well. To every one of you who is tuned in this morning, I want to say a massive good morning. Share the broadcast with your friends and loved ones and invite them to like our pages. To my brother, Kojo D, and Felix all the way in Aberdeen, massive good morning to you, gentlemen. Mr. Kofi Ali Abdul Yakin, massive good morning. And then to the one and only, Mr. Malik Dramani Mahama. It's been quite a while. I hope you are doing very, very well as well. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the morning show. Well, so by way of program outline, it's the first time of tuning in to listen to us. I'm bringing you the code for the day, the weather forecast will follow suit, then the travel update. We'll move on from there to have a look at some of the stories making the rounds across the globe. It's known as Global Trotting. And then we continue from there exactement at 11:30. Okay, at 11 o'clock, I will do my best to bring you all that you need to know with the story that is making the rounds across the globe. And you know that it's a Wednesday edition, so before position, press with time. But we'll continue from there. And then at 11:30, the lines will be open. If you want to hop in or share your take with us, feel free to do so. But however, before then, if you have any take, feel free to post it, and I promise you, I'll put it across. And then at 12 o'clock, we cross over from the studios to the House of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. So in Nigeria, that's what's going to happen for you today. But once again, let me say welcome to the program, Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. The code for the day says, do not see hard work as working long hours only, but making greater use of your mind to achieve more. So that brings you to the AI regime, right? Anything that will help to expedite whatever you are doing, that you get the result that you want, or even a better result than that, why not? So far as you're not killing anybody or doing harm to anybody, I think that is a good one, right? Good. All right. Now let's move on to the weather front. Let me tell you what is happening on the weather front this morning. Yes, what has the weather got in stock for you? Well, the top temperature is going to be 9 degrees, the lowest is going to be 4 degrees. However, this afternoon will remain dry with a mixture of bright spells and areas of patchy cloud drifting in at times. A less mild day than the previous with light winds. Now this evening we'll see a few clear breaks. But cloud will thicken into the night with a band of rain sweeping in from the west during the early hours. The rain will be heavy in places. UV level is going to be low, pollution low, sunset 17 hours, and sunrise for tomorrow morning 07:30 hours. This is Starr Radio UK. This is the Wednesday edition of the morning show, and that takes me straight to the travel updates as well. What has the travels got for you? Yes, on the travel this morning, on the underground, for those of you in London, well, Central, Circular, Hammersmith lines have all got I've got hammer delays. Minor delays, apologies there. Then aside, all the others are running a good service. DLR, London Tramlink, and London Overground, good service there. The major roads in London have got no exceptional delays, so a good one there. River Bus, yes, a good service there as well. And then the London Cable Car is back in service. Good service there as well. That brings us straight to the final segment of the travel update. That is a national rail. But keep your eyes on the roads wherever you might be this morning. And let's keep you navigated. Starr Radio UK. So on the national rail this morning, East Midlands Railways have got minor delays. Greater Anglia, minor delays. Merseyrail, minor delays. ScotRail, minor delays. And South Eastern has got minor delays. That aside, all the others are running a good service. And that is where I would say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you, wherever you might be on planet Earth. Enjoy your commute for today. But you know what? Continue to keep those eyes where? On the road. Let's take this quick commercial and I'll be with you. Hey, Charlie, you're on your way to Ghana. Boy, oh boy, you stressed out, tired. Go, you're going to be resting. Okay, then let me recommend to you JN Mobile Spa in Accra, Ghana. Oh boy, JN Mobile Spa will provide organic care in massage. Are you stressed? Do you need rejuvenated, etc.? For your facials, maybe exfoliating, firming, and lifting? Then contact JN Spa on 00233 244 941 002 or 00233 2006 06386, and they will be right there on time. JN Mobile Spa, your health and beauty needs at your doorstep.
Everywhere you go, Afrobeat reggae dancer taking over. Everywhere you go, Afrobeat reggae dancer taking over. Yo, what's up, people? This is a boy Raskin Bobo One. Tune in every day, every night at the Star Radio UK with the big man them Archie. When I say order, you say fire.
Welcome back to the program Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. As you heard, I remain yours sincerely, the one and only Archie. And once again, welcome to the program. Share the broadcast with your friends and loved ones. Invite them to like our pages as well. Okay, now let's crack on to some of these stories making the rounds across the globe today. When it comes to Nigeria, for the AFCON, South Africa has dismissed Nigeria High Commission's advisory to as false alarm. Well, we hope so. We hope so that the threat or the alleged threat by the South African fans will not be what they are saying. The South Africa High Commission and in Nigeria has dismissed, or the South Africa as a country has dismissed that alleged threat by the South African fans when they meet for the AFCON semis. Okay. Now, EFCC charges former APC Governor Yaya Bello with 80 billion naira fraud. Kogi government has reacted. Those men are ready for Steve Bafana test, and then that's for the match. Nigeria spent on education and medical tourism in 10 years. What Cardoso is saying, and then SCDC Tantita arrest vessel with 88,000 liters of crude oil. Now, you take somebody like me. I don't have the means to, own a ship or hire a ship that can, some way, somehow, get 88,000 liters of crude oil on board. So what exactly is happening? The NCC urges states others to cut telecom taxes, and then IMPI fought article over criticism on payment of NNPC proceeds to the CBN account. The CBN says inflation to drop by 21.4% as market volumes rises to $800 billion. Okay, SIM cards not linked to NIN will be deactivated. Okay, that's some of the stories making around there. And Falana asks ECOWAS to sanction Senegalese president for postponing elections. Can that happen? Well, he has his reasons, and he's giving the reasons. Well, the clashes that is going on, what do you think will happen about that or to that? That is another question. 1 dead and 2 wounded in Kenya. Hyena attack. Sad one there. Zimbabwe's ruling party secures supermajority in parliament. Oh boy. Without that supermajority, see what is happening there. Talk less that. A Senegalese frustrated as parliament backs postponement of February 25 elections. Now, Djibouti steps up Coast Guard patrols amid the Red Sea crisis. The narrow Bab al-Mandab Strait is all that separates Djibouti from Yemen, from where the Houthi militant group has launched a series of attacks. So those are some of the stories making the rounds there. South Africa President Ramaphosa celebrates Tyler's historic Grammy win. Of course, you have to. Senegal Parliament delays election until December. Those are some of the stories making the rounds there. Ethiopia leader plays down fears of conflict with Somalia. I bet you say bring it on. Well, he is a president who likes fighting, isn't he? No. Well, he's fighting the courts of his country. So, well, when it comes to Ghana as well, MPs are community ATMs for their constituents. Joe Wise is saying, why should that be? Where are they getting those monies from to be their community ATM? So everybody wants money. They want to withdraw money. They come to you. So why would our MPs not be corrupted? Well, Bagwin laments high attrition rate in Parliament. Speaker of Parliament Alvin Bagwin has expressed concerns over the significant turnover of members of Parliament. He therefore urged the various political parties to address the issue seriously during the recent primaries of the New Patriotic Party. And Bipong Chief commends pleas for professional handling of chaos at his palace. Well. People are commending the IGP, and what do you think of what can happen? New standing orders add four mothers to forefathers in the pledge Adwoa Safo is saying. The Member of Parliament for Domekwa Benya, Sarah Adwoa Safo, has questioned the part of the national pledge which references our forefathers, indicating its gender bias. She is going to be going out soon because she lost a bid to stand for or stand as the Prime Minister. No, my apologies. Member of Parliament as for the ruling government at Domekwa Benya. So he's now saying that when we say our forefathers, the pledge, the national pledge that they say in Ghana or they recite in Ghana, and our forefathers, he said we can't say that. We are being gender biased, so we have to say our forefathers and our foremothers. So we don't say nothing. We say Ghana. Okay. And the Ghana Police Service interdicts an officer for unprofessional conduct. There are some of the stories making the rounds. Yes, as I did say, it is the Wednesday edition of the morning show. So the fourth press with time. Now let's move on to other parts of the world to look at some of the stories making the rounds as well. Hamas has responds to proposed Gaza ceasefire plan. Israel and the USA, they are reviewing their response, which Qatar has described as positive. And Trump failed immunity appeal is a strategic win. Okay, the time it took to issue the decision has indefinitely delayed Mr. Trump's election supervision trial. And deadly blast in Pakistan day before election. 2 explosions killed at least 22 people ahead of a poll marred by violence and claims of rigging. Before they start the whole program or the election, they are crying foul. So, well, I was talking to my producer behind the scenes, and we are looking at the fact that when it comes to politicking, democracy properly, I said there are some part of the world that it's not that kind of democracy where we talk about the rule of law. So law applies. No. Those are places where I think that I've got the military behind me, or that, and they can stoke the fire. Then you can be, sacked, or anything can happen to you. Just label the dog, give it a bad name, and then you can hang it. I don't think that this democracy that we practice should be allowed to be practiced everywhere. They might have some system that can help them develop and live peaceably. Why not? Russia airstrike claimed 3 lives in Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky says 2 people died in Kyiv and another man is killed in Mykolaiv. Well. What do you think about that? A mother convicted for failing to stop school shooting. Jennifer Crumbley is the first U.S. parent ever convicted of manslaughter over a mass shooting by their child. Now, how would that go down for people whose wards have been affected by that? I think he's going to open the flood gates where people are going to say, we're going to sue the parents of wards or kids or students who go on to do that, especially in this case where the parent bought a pistol for their son, minor, and he went on shooting at people. Well, he has been sentenced to life imprisonment. Yes, but we'll tell you more about all that. A dentist to get 20,000 pounds golden hello to work in areas with most need. The incentive, my apologies, to move across the country is part of a plan for England that dentists say will not solve the problem. Okay? And then Prince William is to appear at Windsor event as King Charles rests after cancer news. And then amber snow and ice warning issued by Met Office. The warning for parts of northern England and North Wales come after a mild start to February. And then in other stories as well, disgraced singer Gary Glitter refused jail release. Well, this and a lot more are going to be coming your way from Starr Radio UK this morning. So wherever you are, don't touch the dial. Let's take a quick a musical break. Once we come back, I will be bringing you everything that you gotta know. Okay, so we're going to be enjoying this music. It's a hot African praise there. Let's get ready and hit the ground.
For my life. You say number one, number two, number three, number four, number five. I don't think I'm finished. Number one, number two, number three, number five. I don't think I'm finished. Raise it up. Let's go. I don't think I'm finished. Somebody make some noise. Bring out your handkerchief. Bring it out. Are you ready to praise God? Wherever you are, I want you to move your body for the Lord. For the Lord is good all the time, and all the time my God is good. And good music, are you ready? Yeah. Are you ready now? Everybody sing. Papa, when I feel heaven, praise it. With the praise it. Everybody sing, Papa. Everybody sing, Papa. With the praise it. With the praise it. Somebody, put your hands up. Put your hands up. Ay, 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 ay. You are not ready. Aquaimo, you the outside. Aquaimo, make some noise.
This is Starr Radio UK.
All around the world.
Everybody, let's
are listening to Starr Radio Morning Show.
Oh, so that is a wonderful tune there for you on Starr Radio UK. And it's a praise medley there. I want to be able to make your day this morning. Giving thanks and praise to the Almighty God who has given us opportunity to come His way or be able to come on this platform this morning. We are still alive, well and kicking. So what about that? Okay. Let's now move on and have a look at some of the stories making the rounds. The details of the stories making the rounds this morning. Wherever you are, don't touch the dial. Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London, and bringing the time now to exactly 14 minutes past the top of the hour. It is the Wednesday edition of the morning show. Stay tuned and don't touch the dial. Okay, now let's crack on. So we start from Nigeria, where we will normally start from. Once again, let me say morning to my colleague and co-presenter, Mr. Olayomi Koiki. Yes, as I did say earlier on, due to some reason, he's not been able to be live with us, but we'll do our best to see how to get him, because the time coincides with some programs or some activities of his. So we will try to our best to see how to get him back on. Yeah. Okay. Now, when it comes to some of the stories making the rounds this morning pertaining to what is happening in Nigeria, yesterday I did talk about the fact that, well, Nigerian fans or citizens who are in South Africa were worried about a clash that is going to be taking place between, once a clash, the AFCON match between Nigeria and the Super Eagles and the Bafana boys, and were alleged to have said that, well, there are South Africans who were threatening that should Nigeria beat South Africa, they are actually going to go on a rampage, destroying or hurting Nigerians or attacking Nigerians there. But the South Africa has dismissed that statement, that it is nothing true. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation in South Africa has expressed dissatisfaction with the safety advisory released by Nigerian High Commission in Pretoria, labeling it as a false alarm and describing it as regrettable. Now, the statement by the department released on Tuesday expressed concerns over altercations that advisory could provoke during the AFCON semi-finals between South Africa's national team, Bafana, and the Super Eagles. That's today. Now, the statement said, the Department of the International Relations and Cooperation has learned about an unfortunate advisory issued by the High Commission of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in Pretoria. The advisory is regrettable because it seemed to create alarm and unnecessary tension between the citizens of South Africa and Nigeria living in or visiting South Africa. The South African national soccer team, Bafana, has played against their Nigerian counterparts, the Super Eagles, on many occasions. And there's been no history of soccer hooliganism among South Africans associated with the outcome of such encounters. We are confident that the sport-loving nation of South Africa poses no threat to Nigerian citizens, and we do not agree with the apprehension expressed by the High Commission. On Tuesday, the Nigerian High Commission in Pretoria released an advisory to Nigerians to steer clear of provocative actions before, during, and after the semi-finals against South Africa, while drawing attention to potentially inflammatory online comments made by a section of South African citizens against Nigerians living in the host country. Listeners, it is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now, do you think we should have got into a place where football can bring something out of the sort? I would say, yeah. I mean, all sorts do happen, doesn't it? But it's all coming your way from Starr Radio UK. As I did say, we are already pressed with time, so we'll be running through it like no man's business. So let me bring you a few of the other stories making the rounds from Nigeria this morning. The Central Bank of Nigeria has blamed the free fall of the Naira on the huge sum of 40 billion spent on Nigerians by Nigerians on foreign education and medical tourism in the last 10 years. The CBN made this clarification yesterday while giving insights into the constant depreciation of the value of the Naira as against the United States dollar, creating a volatile exchange rate for the country. Now, according to the Apex Bank, the trend is caused by a decline in supply of US dollars amid the high demand for the currency to pay for foreign services in the education, health, and other sectors. Now, CBN Governor Olayomi Kadoso, who stated this at a sectorial debate organized by the House of Representatives, and said Nigeria has spent $40 billion on school and medical tourism in 10 years, putting pressure on the Naira, causing it to keep depreciating. Now, how much money do people who live in the diaspora also send back to the country? Now, Kadoso explained that Foreign education expenses amounted to $28.65 billion, while medical treatment abroad incurred about $11.01 billion. He said, given the substantial demand for education, healthcare, professional services, personal travel, and similar needs, the exchange rate is bound to face ongoing pressure. Now, given this data, it is crucial to highlight that between 2010 and 2020, foreign education expenses amounted to a substantial $28.65 billion as per the CBN publicly available balance of payment statistics. Now, similar medical treatment abroad has incurred around $11.01 billion in costs during the same period. Now, consequently, over the past decade, foreign exchange demand for education and healthcare has totaled nearly $40 billion. Notably, this amount surpasses the total current foreign exchange reserves of the CBN, mitigating a significant portion of this demand would have resulted in a considerably stronger naira today. Now, personal travel allowances have also accounted for 58.7 billion, for a total of the 58.7 billion during the same period. Notably, between January and September 2019, the CBN disbursed $9.1 billion to Nigerians for personal foreign travel. Now, continuing on the topic of the demands for US dollars, Nigeria's annual import, which requires dollars for payment, amounted to $16.65 billion in 1980. By 2014, the annual import expenditure has significantly surged to $67.05 billion, although it gradually decreased to $54.7 billion as of last year. Similar food imports escalated from $2.6 billion in 1980 to $14.84 billion in 2019. According to him, while inflation pressures may persist, albeit temporarily, they are expected to moderate significantly by the fourth quarter of 2024, with exchange rate pressures also expected to reduce the smooth functioning of the foreign exchange market. Now, he further stated that the Nigerian foreign exchange market is currently facing increased demand pressures, causing continued decline in the value of the naira. Now, factors contributing to this situation include speculative forex demands, inadequate forex supply due to non-remittance of crude oil earnings to the CBN. Now, increased capital outflows and excess liquidity from physical activities. The shift to a market-driven exchange rate was intended to create a stable macroeconomic environment and discourage currency hoarding. However, short-term volatilities are attributed to arbitrage and speculation. To address exchange rate volatility, a comprehensive strategy has been initiated to enhance liquidity in the FX market, foreign exchange market. This includes unifying FX market segment, clearing outstanding FX obligation, introducing new operational mechanism for the BDSs, and enforcing the net open position limit, and adjusting the remuneration standing deposits facility cap, the CBN governor said. The court also noted that while the CBN has the mandate of stabilizing the exchange rate, achieving results will necessitate efforts beyond the bank itself and indeed to an attitudinal change of all citizens. He also stated that relocation of some department of CBN to Lagos was not a political decision, but only an implementation of what had been done before now. We did not change anything. We have always done this in order to get closer to the banks for best results, he said. It's quite an interesting and a lengthy piece there. However, do you think that his take actually captures the reason why Nigeria's naira is falling like no man's business? Now, he is of the view that because a lot of students, we are financing education and then healthcare, or they call health tourism. That is so. Why is the government of Nigeria not making sure that their hospital is up to scratch. But if we do things like that, if somebody needs a cardio surgery or anything of the sort, they'll do it in their country, right? So we save the money there. So we talk about this billions. Do you think that we couldn't have used, maybe the government has, getting a loan or gotten a loan of maybe some billion to build a facility where people who would rather be traveling outside of the country will remain in the country, and that will save the country from its high expenditure or tourism expenditure, health expenditure that we're talking about there. And if we up our game and we have good educational system, so universities are running and we don't have strikes just going on unabated, and like a whole year, almost a year, students were staying at home, didn't know what was going to happen because of an impasse between the government and the university lecturers. So if they don't do things right, do we say, well, it is okay, and then blame it on the fact that people are going outside? If they don't go outside to go and educate themselves, should they stay in there wasting their time? And again, when people are even have completed their universities, what is the chance that they're going to be getting a job? And the population is also growing. So who do we blame? Well, listeners, this is all coming away from Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. But unfortunately, they didn't touch on how much money those in the diaspora or outside the country are sending back into the country. They didn't touch on that. Well, I think next time we have him, we will be looking at that as well. But it's all coming away from Starr Radio UK. The Nigeria Communication Commission yesterday appealed to states and local government councils across the country to cut taxes imposed on telecom companies, saying excessive taxation will be counterproductive to the growth of the industry. Its executive vice chairman, Dr. Aminu Wada Maida, lamented that with between 50 to 55% taxes already imposed on telecom operators, it will be difficult to attract foreign investment into the sector, in line with President Bola Tinubu's directive to the NCC. Now, according to Dr. Maida, the NCC management has decided to embark on nationwide advocacy to appeal to states and local government as well as other stakeholders on the need to reduce levies they impose, especially the right way of charges and other multiple taxes. Dr. Maida made the remarks yesterday at a digital economy complex in Bora in Abuja. Now, there again, when taxes are increased or they have high taxes that those in the communication industry have high taxes to pay, it is transferred to the end users. So who are we punishing once again? The citizens. And you ask yourself the question, when they do those things, meanwhile, when those taxes, virtually, that's why I always commend those of you who continue to listen to us from Nigeria, from Africa as a whole, especially, and those in the Caribbean area where things when it comes to data is very expensive there. That's why I commend each and every one of you, because I know that it costs you an arm and a leg, yet you find the time to listen to us, and I'm so grateful to you all. Listeners, is coming your way from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. A final story from Nigeria, and then we'll move on from there. The Kogi State government has berated the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission over the anti-graft agency allegation that the Star's immediate past governor, the state's immediate past governor, Alhaji Yahya Bello, was involved in an alleged 80 billion fraud. A statement issued on Tuesday by the State Commission for Information, Kingsley Fangu described the allegation as ridiculous and laughable. It also accused the EFCC of undermining the efforts of President Bola Tinubu in fighting corruption, as its modus operandi has been hijacked by persons determined to see the anti-corruption crusade of the president fail. The statement also accused the EFCC of working with criminals masquerading as politicians to tarnish Bello's image. Now, Bello had left office in January 27, 2024 having handed over to Osman Ododo. Now, the statement said that the probe of Bello was not only laughable, but portrayed the EFCC as an agency infested with persons whose intents disagree with the noble intention of the president to defeat corruption in Nigeria. Well, you can come out with those statements, but the thing is, let them do their diligence. So far as it's not being paraded and disgraced before the truth is found out. They say it's alleged. Okay? So give him a break. Let him go through whatever investigation. And if he's found culpable, fine. If he's not found culpable, apologies rendered. And then everybody knows. But when those apologies should be in the front pages on all the headlines as well. That is why I say that if they happen to be just allegation and you've ruined the name of this or reputation of this individual, then I bet you that you also have to be prepared to cough up, to pay for damage to this individual. Yeah? Okay. Listeners, Star Radio UK. We are pressed with time, so let's kick off. Let's continue quickly at 11:30. If you want to join in, as I did say, feel free to send us a message through, and we will be doing so. I'll call us on 0208133257, and I promise you to bring you everything that you know, whatever you have put across. Now, Zimbabwe's ruling party have secured supermajority in parliament. Sorry, say. Zimbabwe's ruling ZANU-PF emerged winner on Saturday's February 03 promoted by-election held in Mashonaland East Province. The party secured significant victories in several key constituencies, including Seke and Goromonzi South, and even achieved a clean sweep in the Morondera district. Now, when general elections were last held in ZANU-PF was 10 seats short of the 2/3 majority in parliament. Now, after a series of disputed by-elections, it has attained that goal. ZANU-PF now holds 190 seats in the National Assembly. Now, securing this supermajority in the 280-member parliament, the party moves closer to changing the constitution if it wishes. The election came amid a political crisis in the country, which has been growing since the group of MPs with the main opposition Citizens Coalition for Change had their seats declared vacant in October. Now, just over 2 years at the helm of the Citizens Coalition for Change, opposition leader Nelson Chamisa announced on January 25 he was leaving the opposition party, saying it has been hijacked by the ruling party. Well, is that what they did to actually take the wind out of their sails? Well. You want to know more? You got to stay with us on Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. In Senegal, residents and analysts reacted on Tuesday to the postponement of the election in Senegal. In the street of Dakar, many are wondering about the future of the country and its stability. The postponement has revealed a period of uncertainty, with many Senegalese wondering about the repercussions of the decisions and its legitimacy. It's a whole population that is devastated by this decision. We even want to change our nationality. How long will this postponement last? Said Pape Alion Diem, resident of Dakar. In any case, we're very worried about the situation in this country, he added. Now, President Macky Sall postponed the February 25 vote, citing an electoral dispute between the parliament and the judiciary regarding some candidacy. The opposition leaders and candidates rejected the decision, calling it a coup. Analyst Makid Thomas said that whilst news of election postponement will not lead to destructive unrest compared to the 2021 protests in the country, it represents a warning. Now, Senegal is seen as the beacon of democratic stability in the West African region. He added, the postponement of election will accelerate the democratic decline of neighboring countries, he said. Now, several opposition lawmakers were blocked from voting on Monday as Parliament rescheduled the election for December, prompting outrage and condemnation. Sall's time in office had been set to end on April 2 2024. But now, with the election postponed to rescheduled for December, how do you think that is panning out, and with the unrest that is going on there? Well, the president has been saying that, well, he's not going to be running for president come that election. But with all that unrest and everything, and corruption, alleged corruption that seems to be going on, what do you think is taking place there? Listeners, it is Starr Radio UK. Now, Kenya's court leader, Paul Mackenzie, has been charged with 191 murder. Kenya court leader Paul Mackenzie and 29 associates were charged with the murder of 191 children whose bodies were discovered buried in a forest. The accused denied the charges in the court of Malindi. One defendant was deemed mentally unfit for trial. The prosecutors alleged Mackenzie instructed followers to starve themselves and their children to attain heaven before the world ends, now marking one of the worst cult-related tragedies in recent history. The members of Mackenzie's Good News International Church resided in scheduled settlements spanning 800 acres within the Shakahola forest, where over 400 bodies were unearthed. Mackenzie was arrested April last year and has already been charged with terrorism-related crimes, manslaughter, and torture. He was also convicted in December for producing and distributing films without a license and sentenced to 12 months in jail. A former taxi driver, Mackenzie forbade cult members from sending their children to school and from going to the hospital when they were ill, branding such institution as satanic, some of his followers said. Mackenzie's lawyers have said he is cooperating with the investigation into the deaths. 30 defendants are due back in court on March 7 for a bond hearing, the judge said. Well. Where were their heads when this man was telling them all that? That is where religiosity or religion comes into play. People seem to be asking loads of questions. Listeners, this is all coming away from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Well, if you have MPs who will go to their constituencies and their constituents come to them and say, my ward need to go to hospital, but I am ill, I need to go to hospital, but you need to give me some money. Then automatically what is happening is that you are encouraging them to find some money. Now, whatever money that is being given to them, plus their allowances, plus whatever, might not be going far enough. And therefore, in order not to lose the support of their people, yes, what would they do? They now find ways and means to enrich themselves so they can go and give some to their constituents and so have some to be leading their life of opulence. However, the first deputy speaker in parliament, Joseph Osei Owusu, says members of parliament take care of almost all challenges in their communities. Is that their duty? What about empowering people? Well, this follows how 28 members of parliament lost the just ended parliamentary primaries of the governing New Patriotic Party to chief executive of state institutions, among others. Now, he goes on further to say, out of the 28 sitting MPs that lost, 10 of them are first-timers and 18 are more than one term in the House. Now, speaking, the required lawmaker stated that it is the hope that MPs who have lost parliamentary primaries will respond to the whip and be frequent in parliament. Now, for sitting MPs, they are disadvantaged because as soon as you become an MP, you will pay till next election period. Whereas for the other persons who is coming, he may have saved and deepened his pockets. All the more, if you are sitting MP, you are disadvantaged. The parliament is a poor place. You spend all the money. You are a community ATM. You are the financier for all party activity. You are the social burden. You carry all the social burdens of the community, so you can't save anything. He continued, your emolument is for the whole community, so you are distressed from the beginning to the time of the primaries. Many of my colleagues who lost actually took loans to contest. And they've lost. And some mortgage their properties. It is common knowledge that within 1 year, when they leave Parliament, they can't pay hospital bills. That is why Parliament has made it a condition to support former members of Parliament. Interesting. So, I tell you once again that the system doesn't seem to be working. We are not empowering people to be able to do whatever things that they're supposed to do so that they can stand on their own 2 feet. Instead of us giving them fish all the time, we are able to empower them to go fishing themselves. But looking at what it's saying, boy oh boy, and it's saying deep pockets win parliamentary primaries. So when it comes to parliamentary primaries, it's those who can afford to give more than their neighbor. Well, it's all coming your way from Starr Radio UK. One other story, and then we leave Ghana because, as I said, we press with time. A parliamentary CSOs and monitoring group, Parliamentary Network Africa, is cautioning lawmakers in the country against entertaining mediocrity in the legislative arm of government under the guise of a high attrition rate of parliamentarians. Some 66 MPs of the 8th Parliament, comprising 20 from the NDC and 46 from the MPP, will not be returning to Parliament following the conclusion of their primaries of the 2 leading parties in the country. Now, Majority Leader Osei Mensah Bonsu has bemoaned the massive exodus of the incumbent MPs, adding it is worrisome for the democracy of the country. The longer a person stays in Parliament, the better the performance of that person. It is for him, it is for his party, it is for the Parliament, and it is for our democracy, he said in a statement. But the Executive Director of PN Africa, Sami Obeng, asserts some MPs deserve to be booted out. He said, I am of your opinion and have always maintained there are some members of Parliament who have no business staying in Parliament. We need not also hide behind higher attrition rate and celebrate mediocrity. There are some people who have absolutely no business staying in Parliament, and so one needs to not pity them at all if their constituents have also recognized that. He said, on assertions Parliament would lose its most experienced hands if the trend continues, Samuel Obeng says new MPs must be given the opportunity to learn and hone their skills. In the quote, he continues to say, there are some great ones also who losing them from Parliament will be a major blow to us. We need to find a way to balance these. Yes, these people also learned when they go into Parliament as freshmen, and every year they've been able to hone the skill of being good legislators. We believe that the new ones will be able to have that same kind of opportunity to learn. Would that happen? Do you think that is the case? Do you agree with that? Listeners, this is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Let me say thank you to every one of you who continue to stay with us all this while and enjoying the program. Now, one other story. So, from Parliament. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Gbagben, has expressed concerns over the significant turnover of members of Parliament. He therefore urged the various political parties to address the issue seriously. During the recent primaries, the New Patriotic Party, 28 MPs lost their bid to return. About 17 NDC members also during the party primaries lost last year. They also lost theirs. 5 MPs from the NDC and 19 from the MPP also opted out. Now, this sudden shift in parliament composition raises concerns about Ghana's democratic development and the stability of the legislature. The Speaker, in his welcome address on the floor, emphasized that while individual competence matters, party endorsement is equally crucial. The Speaker called on all stakeholders to consider the hemorrhage and its financial implications, pointing out that the investment made in each MP is substantial and should not go waste after every 4 years. So should we say that, well, we wouldn't pay them all that, whatever they pay them, what do they call it? Gratuity thing that they pay them every 4 years? So if you want to continue, then you understand that you'll not be paid the gratuity. So you stay there. But those who want to receive the gratuity will be the ones that are leaving Parliament. Maybe that will help. But well, I know that, well, they wouldn't agree to that, would they? Listeners, this is Starr Radio UK. This is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Well, one story that my producer is highlighting that I need to touch on is this statement by Kwesi Pratt. Now, Kwesi Pratt Jr., the managing editor of the Inside newspaper, has stated that Vice President Dr. Bawumia is betraying President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's trust in its pursuit of the presidency. Now, Pratt expressed his concerns about Bawumia's recent comments, claiming that they suggest a deliberate dissociation from the Akufo-Addo administration. Now, why is he saying that? I think that with their performance so far, which is inadequate, and the fact that people or citizens are struggling, it is better to dissociate yourself from them and say that, look, this is a new patriotic party, a new ideology, a new policies that we're going to be putting across. But the astounded journalist is saying that that is a betrayal of the president. According to Kwesi Pratt, the vice president seemed to be neglecting his responsibility and deflecting blame for the current economic hurdles onto the president Akufo-Addo. Now, Bawumia was involved in all aspects of the government. There is nothing that he was excluded from. So, if things didn't go well, he should have said that and outlined the issue that needed correction. But he is saying he is the driver's mate. I rest my case there. Listeners, this is Starr Radio UK. This is the Wednesday edition of the morning show. I'll be taking you to the House of Parliament in the next few moments, but wherever you are, stay tuned. Don't touch the dial whilst we continue to look at the stories making the rounds this morning. Now, when it comes to other parts of the world, what are the stories making the rounds? Well, Hamas has laid out a series of demands, including exchanging hostages for Palestinian prisoners and rebuilding Gaza in response to an Israel-backed ceasefire proposal. The armed group wants a full withdrawal of Israeli forces and an end to the war after a 45-day truce phases. Now, the offer is likely to be unacceptable to Israel's Prime Minister, who has called for total victory in Gaza. The question is whether a middle ground can be reached to move the process on. Hamas' responses is a counter-offer to a ceasefire proposal backed by Israel and US and mediated by Qatar and Egypt, details of which have not been made public. Now, according to a draft of the Hamas document seen by some news network, it suggests a first 45-day pause in fighting, during which all Israel women hostages, males under 19, the elderly and sick, will be exchanged for Palestinian women and children held in Israeli jail. Now, Israel forces would withdraw from populated areas of Gaza, and the reconstruction of hospitals and refugee camps will begin. A second phase, which will see remaining male Israeli hostages exchanged for Palestinian prisoners and Israeli forces leave Gaza completely. The third is a third final phase, during which both sides will exchange remains and bodies. Now, the deal will see deliveries of food and other aid to Gaza increase by the end of the 135-day phase in fighting. Hamas says negotiations would have concluded to the end of the war. The proposal received a tepid response from the U.S. President Joe Biden, who called it a little over the top. The Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said there was still a lot of work to be done to reach a permanent ceasefire, but stressed that the importance of reaching lasting peace. A previous one-week truce in November saw about 100 hostages freed in a swap with 240 Palestinian prisoners. Around 1,300 people were killed during the Hamas attack on southern Israel on 7th of October last year. The armed group is proscribed as a terrorist organization by many Western countries or governments, including the UK and the US. More than 27,500 Palestinians have been killed and at least 65,000 injured by the war launched by Israel in response, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Interesting. Would they hearken to that? Would they agree with that? As the president, United States President Joe Biden is saying, it's a bit over the top. Okay. Now, in other stories making the rounds as well, 2 bomb explosions have killed at least 22 people in Pakistan, Balochistan province on the eve of general elections, officials have said. The first blast killed 14 people in front of an independent candidate's party office in Pishin district. The second explosion left 8 people dead in Kila Saif Ullah district, about 150 kilometers away, at 93 miles away. Many others were injured in the 2 blasts. The election has been marred by violence and claims of pool rigging. Now, no group has yet claimed responsibility for the attack in Pishin, a town about 50 kilometers from the city of Quetta and 100 kilometers southeast of the Afghan border. The provincial authorities said 25 people were also wounded. Now, images on social media show cars and motorbikes blown apart by the force of the explosion. It took place outside the election office of a local independent candidate who officials said was meeting his polling agent at the time. Sad one there. May their souls, innocent soul, rest in perfect peace. Now, in the US, Donald Trump has been handed a defeat in the court, but one that comes with a generous helping of victory. An appeals court ruled that Mr. Trump is not immune from criminal prosecution for acts committed while he was president. The time it took to issue the decision, however, has indefinitely delayed Mr. Trump's federal trial related to the 6th January 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. So while Mr. Trump did not successfully assert sweeping new presidential powers to act with impunity while in office, the tentative 4th March start date in Washington, D.C. has been removed from the federal court's calendar, and there is no indication of when it might reappear. This is in keeping with the former president's strategy of throwing sand in the gears of the judicial process whenever possible, according to Neema Rahmani, a former federal prosecutor. It is in Trump's interest to delay the case until after the November elections, Mr. Rahmani said. If he wins control of the White House, a sitting president can't be prosecuted. If delay is the goal, there are a few steps Mr. Trump's legal team will now follow. They might request that the full 11-judge D.C. Circuit Court of Appeal review and reconsider the case. This is unlikely to succeed, however, as 6 of the 8 remaining judges would have to back the decision, and obliging such a request is rare. The appeals court, meanwhile, has ruled that the 6th January case can proceed while such a request is considered, perhaps in the hope of avoiding further delay. But Mr. Trump has other options at his disposal. He can turn the Supreme Court, which would have to decide whether to review the case or let the lower court decision stand. They can also decide whether to put the 6th January trial on hold in the meantime. Now that appears the likely route, as the appeal court has given the Trump legal team until 12 February to prepare its Supreme Court request. That is where there are further opportunities for delays or for the trial to get back on track. Now, if the Supreme Court refuses to hear the case, the election interference case will return to its normal schedule. But if it agrees to do so, that all but guarantees that a trial will take place under the shadow of Election Day at the very earliest. It is the prospect that may prompt Judge Tanya Tatkan, who is presiding over the trial, to shelve the case until Americans can cast their ballots in November. But what precedent is being set? What precedent is being set? Because it could be that, well, take the next elections and the Democrats lose. Let me put it that way. They happen to lose the election. Let's put it. Just thinking out loud. And then they decide, you know what? If what Trump did and all the legal gymnastics that have taken place is made him that he is avoiding being tried for his actions, then they can also do the same thing. And they can also use legal gymnastics to avoid being tried, blah, blah, blah. You get it? But what precedent is being set? Because in future, you can have somebody who come and just do that as well. Say, we're not going to, and this time around, may end up getting the lynching people in the capital. And what example would they have set for them? Well, we all live to see. It is all coming away from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Moving on straight to the UK before we cross over to the House of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question. The dentist to get 20k golden hello to work in areas with most need. And William returns to work after Kate's surgery. The Prince of Wales will take on some of the King's public duties following his cancer diagnosis. So he'll be in Windsor today, giving various the accolades or rewards or whatever they will tell me. In other stories as well, this grey singer Gary Glitter has been refused jail release. The pedophile Gary Glitter, renamed Paul Gad, has lost a parole board bid to be freed from jail. I bet you everybody was doing their best to stop him from being released. But the thing is, he is a threat with his age, or at his age, and being behind bars all this while. What a thing. A funding pledge for disabled people's homes has been shelved. Let me bring that one, then we bring the program, the first part of the program to close and talk straight to the House of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question start. The government has quietly dropped a commitment to increase the amount of money that disabled people in England can claim to adapt their homes. The Disabled Facility Grant is used to fund alterations aimed at easing living at home, such as installing wet rooms or stair lifts. The maximum amount a person is entitled to claim has been capped at 30,000 since 2008. But in real terms, that means it is now worth around a third less. The Local Government Association told Committee of MPs that 30,000 was now insufficient for most major building works costs. The government said it had put an additional 100 million pounds towards the grant over 2 years so that more people can benefit from it. Now, Alexa Woodcook moved it to her home in Chester just after 2 years ago with her son Finlay Woodcock Daniels, who is 17 and has cerebral palsy. Now, she raised money to install low access doors and ramps so he can get in and out of the house using his wheelchair, and apply for disabled facility grant to reconfigure the entire downstairs. Doors need widening. Some doors need moving purely to make Finlay's movement around the house easier because he's also visually impaired. Now, she says he also needs a wet room on the ground floor and safer access to the garden, along with a small extension to provide living space for the family. But well, that doesn't seem to be what is going to be happening for them, because they reckon that the government have some way, somehow shelved that promise and are doing something behind the scenes that people cannot actually say. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where I bring the program to a close for today. I'm going to be taking you to the House of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. So wherever you are, once again, I say thank you very much for joining us. Don't touch the dial. Yes, we're taking you to the House of Parliament. It's a pleasure coming your way once again. This is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. I am Archie. Let's take a commercial break, and once we come back, I'll bring you everything that you need to know when it comes to what the Prime Minister's questions are. Stay tuned.
Hi guys, this is your friend Uruj from SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR, S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Such meetings later today.
Fleur Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also send my best wishes to the King. Last week, the Foreign Secretary said that we, with allies, will look at the issue of recognising a Palestinian state so that the Palestinian people can see irreversible progress towards a two-state solution. But afterwards, it was briefed that these words had not been signed off by Number 10. Does the Prime Minister agree with his Foreign Secretary?
Mr. Speaker, our long-standing position has been that we will recognise a Palestinian state at a time that is most conducive to the peace process. But the most important thing is we are committed to that two-state solution and working with our allies to bring it about.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People in Northampton South are desperately short of NHS dental provision. Indeed, in Dustin, there is now none at all. So today's dentistry recovery plan announcements are hugely welcome. But can the Prime Minister guarantee my residents improvements within months and not years?
Mr. Speaker, we are publishing the dentistry recovery plan today, and my honourable friend, the Health Secretary, will be making a statement shortly. Over 1 million more people saw an NHS dentist last year than the year before, but we know that there is more to do, and that's why the recovery plan will make sure that NHS dental care is faster, simpler and fairer for patients and staff.
Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join with the Prime Minister in sending His Majesty the King our very best wishes for his treatment. Across this House, we all look forward to seeing him back to full health as quickly as possible. Mr. Speaker, this week the unwavering bravery of Brianna Jay's mother, Esther, has touched us all. As a father, I can't even imagine the pain that she's going through, and I'm glad that she's with us in the gallery here today. Mr. Speaker, a year ago, the Prime Minister promised to bring NHS waiting lists down. Isn't he glad he didn't bet £1,000 on it?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at least I stand by my commitments. He's so indecisive, the only bet he'd make is an each-way bet.
Well, Mr. Speaker, he says he stands by his commitments. He once insisted that if he missed his promises, these are the words he used, I'm the Prime Minister, and then he said, it's on me personally. Today we learned from his own officials that he's the blocker to any deal to end the doctors' strikes. Yep. And he's always, every time he's asked, he blames everyone else. So what exactly did he mean when he said it's on him personally if he doesn't meet his promise?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, well, we are bringing the waiting list down for the longest waiters. We're making progress. But it's a bit rich, Mr. Speaker, to hear about promises from someone who's broken every single promise he was elected on. I mean, I think I counted almost 30 in the last year. Pensions, planning, peerages, public sector pay, tuition fees, childcare, second referendums, defining a woman. Although in fairness, that was only 99% of a U-turn. The list goes on, but the theme is the same, Mr. Speaker. It's empty words, broken promises, and absolutely no plan.
Of all the weeks to say that, when Brianna's mother is in this chamber, shame, parading as a man of integrity when he's got absolutely no responsibility. Absolute. Of all.
Either side. I think the member's getting carried away. Can I just say that our constituents want to hear the questions and they certainly want to hear the answers. They don't want to hear organised barracking. So please, I want no more. Keir Starmer.
I think the role of the Prime Minister is to ensure that every single citizen in this country feels safe and respected. It's a shame the Prime Minister doesn't share that. I welcome the fact that he's finally admitted that he's failed on waiting lists in the NHS. I also welcome that he's finally acknowledged the crisis in NHS dentistry. He's calling it a recovery plan after 14 years of Tory government. What exactly does he think the NHS dentistry is recovering from?
Prime Minister. As ever, Mr. Speaker, he seems to
Certainly not having enough the front bench either. Please, I want to hear it. The election fever, I'm hoping, is not coming tomorrow, so let's not behave as though it is. Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as ever, he conveniently forgets the impact of a pandemic on NHS dentistry, and it was specifically because of the close proximity nature of dental provision that it was unable to operate as normal throughout the pandemic. That was the recommendation of the medical and clinical experts, Mr. Speaker, which is why inevitably there is a backlog in dental care and the impact that it has. But that's why, as my honourable friend, the Health Secretary, will outline later today for the House, we're putting more funding in to provide more NHS provision across the country, on top of plans that will see the number of dental training places increase by 40%, Mr. Speaker. But I would actually just point out, our plans mean that there will be 2.5 million more NHS appointments, which is in fact 3 times more than the Labour Party are proposing.
Mr. Speaker, there are some areas in the country where you literally can't have an NHS dentist, and he says that's down to COVID. People are literally pulling out their own teeth.
Sorry. Can I just say, I don't need any more off this front bench either. Do we understand each other? Carry on, Keir Starmer.
Speaker, people are literally pulling their teeth out using pliers. It's an experience that can be compared with extracting an answer from the Prime Minister at this dispatch box. The truth is, after 14 years of neglect, this recovery plan is just a desperate attempt to try to recover back to square one. If he wanted to move forward, he should follow Labour, scrap the non-dom tax status, use the money to fund 2 million more hospital appointments every year. But, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is oddly reluctant to follow us on this. What exactly is so special about this tax avoidance scheme that the Prime Minister prioritises it above the NHS?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's look at that record. We've, in the NHS, record funding, record doctors and nurses, record number of appointments, higher cancer survival rates. But what's happening under Labour's watch in Wales, Mr. Speaker? Let's have a look. A fifth of people in Wales are currently on a waiting list. Waits of 18 months or more are 10 times higher than that in England, and people are waiting twice as long for an operation. Their failure has sent the Welsh NHS back to square one, and we'll never let them do that here.
Mr. Speaker, when he admitted that he'd failed on waiting lists, I actually thought that we might be entering a new era of integrity, professionalism and accountability. Remember that one? But just like all the other relaunches, it's proved to be a false dawn, still blaming everyone else, still removed from reality. It's very simple. You can either back more NHS appointments or more tax avoidance. We know what side we're on. Why doesn't he?
Mr. Speaker, the best way to ensure that we continue to fund the NHS, as we have, is not to make £28 billion of unfunded spending commitments. And just this morning, independent Treasury officials have published a formal costing of just one part of their eco-promise, their insulation scheme, and it turns out that it will cost double what they had previously claimed. Not the £6 billion that Labour accounted for, but £13 billion every single year. It's now crystal clear they have absolutely no plan, but we all know how they're going to fund that gap. More taxes on hard-working people.
Mr. Speaker, this is Mr. 25 tax rises. He's literally the country's expert on putting taxes up, and he thinks he can lecture everyone else on the economy. Last week, he and his MPs were laughing at someone whose mortgage had gone up £1,000 a month. This week, he's casually made a £1,000 bet in the middle of an interview. Last week, he thought even raising questions about the cost of living was, and I quote, resorting to the politics of envy. And this week, he's finally found the cause that he wants to rally around, the non-dom status. When he finds himself backing tax avoidance over NHS appointments, does he start to understand why his own MPs are saying he simply does not get what Britain needs?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to take any lectures about getting Britain from a man who thought it was right to defend terrorists, Mr. Speaker. But what we're doing is building a brighter future for our country. And just the last week, expanding healthcare in pharmacies. Today, expanding dental care. This week, helping millions with the cost of living. And most importantly, cutting national insurance. All while the Labour Party argue over 28 billion different ways to raise people's taxes. That's the difference between us. We're delivering a plan. They can't even agree on one.
My constituents and I send our best wishes to the King and royal family. Mr. Speaker, despite the popular narrative, our economy is doing well, with an unemployment rate well below the EU average, strong inward investment and record employment. Taxes are higher than Conservatives would like, but does my right honourable friend agree that a key reason for this is that we rightly spent 400 billion on COVID support, including one of the most generous furlough schemes, in order to ensure that no one got left behind, and that it is our intention and instinct to lower taxes, unlike the parties opposite.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is right to highlight our record of providing support to the country when it needed it, whether it's the NHS, vaccines or furlough during COVID, or most recently help with people's energy bills. We're only able to afford that because of the strong management of our economy, which is why we must stick with the plan, not risk going back to square one with the Labour Party, who, as we know, have absolutely no plan and will cost everyone in this country with their £28 billion worth of tax rises.
Leader of the SNP, Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I begin by expressing my heartfelt sympathies to Brianna's mother, who is in the public gallery as we speak, and also to send my best wishes to King Charles in what will hopefully be a quick and full recovery. Mr. Speaker, the public are used to the Tories gambling on the lives of others. Boris Johnson, he did it with public health during the pandemic. His immediate successor, she did it with household finances. So not to be outdone, the Prime Minister on Monday this week accepted a crude bet regarding the lives of asylum seekers. In doing so, he demeaned them as individuals and he degraded the office that he currently holds. So can I ask him, will he apologise?
Mr. Speaker, we may have a principal disagreement on this. I believe, and we believe, that if someone comes to this country illegally, they shouldn't be able to stay, they should be removed, and that's why we're committed to our Rwanda scheme.
Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, as ever, the Prime Minister does himself no favours, because, of course, the bet to which we are referring was worth £1,000, and it came just hours before the Prime Minister ended cost of living support worth just £900. And his justification for doing so was that the cost of living crisis is easing. So can I ask him, what does he believe leaves him looking most out of touch with the public? Gambling £1,000 or believing that the cost of living crisis is getting better?
Well, Mr. Speaker, he talks about the cost of living. Perhaps he can explain to the Scottish people why it is that whilst the UK Conservative government is cutting their taxes, the Scottish government is raising them.
Mr. Speaker, the thoughts of the people of East Worthing and Shoreham are with His Majesty as well. The Archbishop of Canterbury has admitted that since taking office, the attendance at the Church of England has dropped by 15%. And in the 10 years to COVID, the number of baptisms in the Church of England has fallen from 140,000 a year to 87,000. So Christianity in the UK seems to be on the wane, unless apparently you are from a Muslim country in the middle of an asylum claim, and we are now told that 1 in 7 occupants of the BB Stockholm have suddenly become practising Christians. Can I ask the Prime Minister, given that the Church of England has now issued secret guidance for clergy supporting asylum applications for these Damascene conversions, who is the Church accountable to, and are taxpayers being scammed by the Archbishop?
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to illegal migrants, we need to have a system whereby if someone comes here illegally, they shouldn't be able to stay. I can tell him that my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, has asked for more information about the extent to which migrants converting to Christianity is playing a role in our asylum system, and more generally, under our Illegal Migration Act, anyone entering the UK illegally will not be granted asylum here. That's why we need to have somewhere to send them and why our Rwanda scheme is so important. The Labour Party have blocked these measures every single step of the way because they don't have a plan and they won't keep Britain safe.
Sir Geoffrey Donnells. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I, on behalf of my party, extend our best wishes to His Majesty the King for a full recovery. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Prime Minister for his dedication and leadership in helping us to restore our place in the United Kingdom and its internal market, and to revive our political institutions at Stormont. The Union is more secure as a result of our combined endeavours, and together we have greatly enhanced the potential to build a strong and prosperous economy that will help to cement our peace in Northern Ireland. Mr. Speaker, securing peace in an unstable world is vital for all of us. And therefore, will the Prime Minister examine the findings of a recent report by Policy Exchange that calls for Northern Ireland to play an even greater role in the defence of our nation? Prime Minister.
Can I start by thanking and paying tribute to my honourable friend for his own leadership over the past few months. He and I agree that the union is stronger for the return of devolution and the work that we've done. I'd be delighted to examine the findings of the report, and I've seen with my own visits the vital role that Northern Ireland is playing through the location of firms like Tallers and Harland and Wolff. But as he will know, I'm delighted in last week's command paper we specifically committed to examining how we can further bolster Northern Ireland's share of the UK defence sector, because it's another essential pillar of our precious economic union.
Virginia Crosby.
Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister know where the best site for large-scale new nuclear in the UK is? And will he commit to buying the Wilver site, now the only gigawatt site in Wales this year, and make sure it's progressed as soon as possible to meet our net zero and energy security needs and give the enormous boost to the Ynys Môn and North Wales economy?
As ever, my honourable friend is a fantastic champion for Wilfer and the nuclear industry. I can confirm to her that Wilfer is a candidate for the new nuclear site and one of a number of potential sites that could host civil nuclear projects. No decisions have been taken at present, but Great British Nuclear is working with the government to support access, and we're also developing a new national policy statement providing the planning framework for new nuclear power, and would very much welcome her and other contributions to that consultation.
Stuart Malcolm MacDonald.
Mr. Speaker, last year the Prime Minister and other senior ministers were given the conclusions of a government audit of research programmes at UK universities with links to the Chinese state. The audit flagged up hundreds of programmes of being at high risk of being used potentially by the CCP for military use and other applications in strategic and sensitive areas that are of high interest to an authoritarian regime such as China. A smaller proportion were judged to be extremely high risk. Despite that, the government has elected to do nothing about it. So will the Prime Minister confirm his personal knowledge of that report and explain to the House why no action is to be taken? These programmes have to be continued unimpeded.
Mr. Speaker, we will continue to take a robust and proactive approach towards our relationship with China, rooted in the UK's national interest and values. And in fact, our National Security Act, which we passed last year, brings together vital new measures to protect our national security, and that includes creating a foreign influence registration scheme through the Act, which has been created to tackle specifically covert influence in the UK, and will continue to take all possible powers to keep the country safe.
Two remarkably talented and enthusiastic individuals from Kettering, Becky Horrell and Lindsay Atkins, have put together a really ambitious £2 million bid to repurpose the redundant Gala Bingo Hall site in Kettering High Street into a community arts, music, business and family hub, which would be simply transformative for Kettering Town Centre. Would my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, please be kind enough to facilitate a meeting for us with the relevant culture and levelling up ministers so we can explore how a combined community ownership fund and cultural development fund bid might get us across the line?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank my honourable friend for highlighting this exciting initiative, and also commend Becky and Lindsay for their campaigning. He'll know that our £150 million community ownership fund is there specifically to help safeguard small but much loved local assets, and indeed our cultural development fund, like the one he mentions, is there to support further cultural projects as well. I will ensure that he gets a meeting with the relevant minister to discuss these plans further, and wish him and his constituents all the best with this redevelopment project.
Janet Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Data revealed by the Centre for Cities showed that after 14 years of Tory rule, towns and cities in every corner of our country have been levelled down, left behind and left out of pocket. On average, people are over £10,000 a year worse off because his party has failed on growth. When will the Prime Minister take responsibility for breaking Britain?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in fact, what we're seeing is record investment in our towns across the UK, many of which were neglected by the Labour Party for decades, Mr. Speaker. But if we really care about levelling up, what we need to do is avoid saddling hard-working Britons with higher taxes, which is exactly what Labour's £28 billion green spending spree would do.
Speaker, for 27 years, constituents across the Vale of Glamorgan and across the whole of Wales sadly have to wait longer to see a doctor, longer for an ambulance, longer at A&E, and longer for an operation than patients in England. There are 24,785 patients in Wales waiting longer than 2 years for an operation. That number in England is 227. Does my right honourable friend agree that Aneurin Bevan will be turning in his grave on the fact that you can't trust Labour with the NHS?
Well, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right. Whereas here in England we have a plan when it comes to education, where we're marching up the league tables and we have virtually eliminated those waiting the longest amount of time. But in Labour on Wales, as he said, education rates are falling and waiting lists over 18 months are more than 10 times higher than here in England. It's crystal clear we should stick to our plan for a brighter future and not go back to square one with Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to Open Democracy this week, since 1999, at least 391 people have died at our borders. That is a rate, Prime Minister, of more than one man, one woman per month for 25 years. And on top of this, the financial cost of this deadly and failed border regime, as well as the Prime Minister's plan for Rwanda, is estimated to cost at least £800 million since 2014. So will the Prime Minister now show that he understands that the people whose lives he's making sick bets on are human beings and provide them with safe routes to the UK in order to seek asylum, instead of more failed and extreme forms of deterrence?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's in fact criminal gangs that are exploiting vulnerable people and leading many of them to lose their lives as they make these dangerous crossings. Now, on this side of the House, we think that's wrong and we want to do something about it, which is why we need to get a deterrent up and running and be able to send people to Rwanda. It's his party that opposes that, so the question for them is why do they remain on the side of the criminal people smugglers?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. February marks Emotional Health, Boost Your Self-Esteem and Children's Mental Health Month. In recent years, something like 6,500 people die in the UK each year due to suicide. And in 2021, I was nearly one of them. Luckily, my attempt failed. I was found by family members quickly. I received amazing care at St Helier and Springfield hospitals, didn't do any permanent damage, and was well looked after by the NHS in the months that followed. And I want to take this chance to say thank you to everyone who saved me, and sorry to my family and loved ones who I put through such an awful ordeal. In that moment, I felt alone and scared and like there was no way out, and that the world would be better off without me in it. But I don't recognise that man anymore. I know that nothing is ever really worth that. Help really is out there, and I'm pretty awesome. Does the Prime Minister agree that one death by suicide is one too many? And will he send a message from the dispatch box today that whatever you're going through, you are not alone, that help is out there, and better days lie ahead?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I know the whole House will join me in commending my honourable friend for his bravery in sharing his story. And I can absolutely assure him that we take this issue incredibly seriously. The new suicide prevention strategy ensures that we will have the actions in place to reduce suicide over the next years, because we absolutely recognise the impact that it has on people, their families, and we should do everything we can to prevent that from happening.
Liz Truss.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And may I take the opportunity to ask the Prime Minister if he will consider apologising to Brianna Gray's mother for his insensitive comments. But turning to my question, the independent report into Teesworks, released last Monday, throws up more questions than it answers. And it's vital that we now have a National Audit Office investigation. The report was scathing and said there is insufficient transparency to offer evidence of value for money. Shouldn't the government lead by example, and will the Prime Minister finally release details of his conversations surrounding Teesworks, as he was asked to do twice last year?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Honourable Lady was talking about the report in Teesworks. as far as I could see. And what that report noted was that the pace and scope of the regeneration had a wide-reaching positive impact on the local economy. And of course, it was an independent external report. It makes it clear that there's no evidence